सो हेलो एवरीवन, नमस्कार। सभी को मेरा प्रणाम। माय नेम इज सार्थक श्रीवास्तवा एंड आई एम अगेन here with a new podcast on the climate crisis. The title of the podcast is The Truth Behind the Climate Crisis: Unmasking the Myths and Politics. And today I have invited Dr. Sailesh Rao as a guest speaker. Let me introduce and plot the briefings about this podcast. So this is a little bit of introduction of me. My name is Sarthak Shrivastava, and I am basically a solar engineer by profession, and I have also done PGC in climate change. And presently, I am the UNFCCC climate change educator. I am doing work in this field since last 4+ years. So I am having a 4+ years of experience. So let me just begin by asking you a simple question. And the question is, are you aware about the triple planetary crisis that the Earth is, that our own planet, our own home is facing? Are you aware about this? If not, that let me introduce it to you. The first planetary crisis that the Earth is going on is the biodiversity loss. Lots of species are getting extinct and have already extinct. The second planetary crisis that the Earth is going is the climate change. You are already familiar with that, I hope. And the third planetary crisis that the Earth is facing is the pollution. So, here, all the Panchatatvas, the earth, the water, the air, the energy, and the sky, have been polluted by the pollutants created by humans. And these all planetary crises are being caused by humans, and therefore, this climate change is called as anthropogenic climate change. My second question to you: what are the nine planetary boundaries, and are you aware about that? If not, then let me basically brief you about the nine planetary boundaries. So basically, the nine planetary boundaries are the framework that identifies the critical Earth systems processes that are essential for maintaining a stable and resilient environment for the humanity. And crossing these boundaries risk in destabilizing the Earth system. So basically, these nine planetary boundaries are the climate change, the biodiversity loss, the land system change, the freshwater use, the geochemical flows, the ocean acidification, the atmospheric aerosol loading, the novel entities, and the stratospheric ozone depletion. And who established this system? So basically, this framework was introduced in 2009 by a team of 28 scientists led by the person known as Johan Rockstrom from the Stockholm Resilience Center, and co-developed further by researchers like Will Stephen. And who are the monitoring agencies monitoring these nine planetary boundaries? So basically, Stockholm Resilience Centers, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the United Nations Environment Program, the International Nitrogen Initiative (INI) organization, the Global Freshwater Partnership, the UNFCC, and many other organizations, and basically the monitoring agencies that are working behind these. So they are the basically the organizations who monitor and administer and theoreticize the nine planetary boundaries. So let us understand them one by one. So the first boundary is the climate change. Okay, so I would be making a different video for these nine planetary boundaries and explaining in detail what about these nine planetary boundaries are all about. But in this video, you only need to um, focus on these two colors. One is green color and one is oranges or the reddish color. So basically, the green color is the safe operating zone. The safe operating zone established by the Stockholm Resilience Center and theoreticize it, and the orange portion is the exceeded one. So basically, climate change domain has already exceeded, as you can see here, the biosphere integrity, that is the biodiversity loss. It has exceeded to a very, very, very significant level. The third one is the land system change, which has also increased. The fourth one is the freshwater change, and according to the news which you might have seen across the globe, people are not getting fresh water for drinking itself, right? So freshwater domain and the freshwater usage has also crossed the safe operating zone. The fifth one is the biogeochemical flows, and basically it happens due to the basically the synthetic fertilizer which we are using on the for in the agriculture sector. The fourth one is the next one is the ocean acidification. It is under safe operating limit, but it is on the verge of getting crossed, right? So the next one is the atmospheric aerosol loading, which is under the safe operating zone. The other one is the stratospheric ozone depletion, which is also under the same safe operating zone. And the last one is the novel entities, and it contains the synthetic chemicals, plastics, and all those kinds of man-made stuffs which are not provided by planet Earth and are not being recycled or reused, or what we called as not in as a part of circular economy. So basically, out of all these nine planetary boundaries, only three of them are in a safe operating zone. Otherwise, all of them have crossed their limits to a very, very, very significant level, and therefore, we are in a very, very major catastrophic climate change. Anything can happen, and the things like floods, the things like extreme weather conditions have become a new normal kind of a thing in today's 21st century. So basically, there are three questions which I wanted to ask from you all. So my first question is, are these nine planetary boundaries still in the condition of reversibility? My second question is burning of fossil fuel the only cause of this disruption? And my third question is, what are the possible challenges and solutions in front of us as humans? So, to answer these questions, we have Dr. Sailesh Rao, our speaker of this podcast. And let me introduce Dr. Sailesh Rao. So, basically, Dr. Sailesh Rao is an ex IITN also, and he is a teacher of Bhagavad Gita. He is basically presently the founder and chief executive director of Climate Heroes, which is an organization dedicated to heal the Earth's climate. He has done his PhD in electrical engineering from Stanford University. And by the way, the video, the video which you are seeing on the internet, so he has developed the communication protocols of the internet, and basically he was also a co-founder of Silicon Design Experts, which was later acquired by the Intel Corporation. Basically, he started his environmental transitions in the year 2006, and he has written two books like Carbon Dharma and Carbon Yoga. Recently, he has also produced the two documentaries like Cowspiracy and What the Health, and he has also published a paper on animal agriculture, and he has been uh, in Oxford University, and he has also been awarded the Karamveer Puraskar in the climate, and also been designated as a climate hero by the Guardian. So he is a prominent advocate of sustainability, veganism, and overall animal liberation on planet Earth. So basically, let us hear from him only what he has to say. I would be asking him various questions on various different aspects of climate crisis, and he would be unmasking the myths and politics which is happening behind the climate crisis. So let us hear from Dr. Sailesh Rao. He would also be giving us some advices and tips to mitigate the climate crisis, and he would also be explaining about the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel uh, on Climate Change reports, the sixth assessment report. So, yes, let us directly listen to Dr. Rao, what he has to say. So, I welcome Dr. Sailesh Rao, and sir, namaskar. And
Yeah. Yeah.
sir, first of all, I would like, because this video will be going into my channel and into the Climate Change India channel on WhatsApp. So, first of all, the people of India are not so much familiar with you, although our community is familiar. But I want you to basically tell us about yourself and your career path, basically.
Okay. So I grew up in India, in Chennai, and
Yeah.
I did my bachelor's at IIT Chennai, IIT Madras at that time. And then I went to the US to do my postgraduate studies. And I got my PhD at the Information Systems Laboratory at Stanford University. So basically, I studied systems.
Okay.
electrical systems mainly, but systems is basic. It's really understanding the big picture of any problem and then coming up with solutions to that problem. So I applied it to the internet for 20 years after my graduation. So I was working on gigabit Ethernet. So and that was the first digital signal processing based internet technology, internet communications technology. And it became very successful. And the internet basically took off. And then I happened to see Al Gore's presentation on TV, and I was so shocked. I said, if half of what he's saying is true, I'm wasting my time. So I decided to look into it. And within 3 months, I realized that it's actually far worse than what he's saying. So I abandoned my career in engineering, and I started focusing on the environment full time, starting in 2006. I started Climate Healers in 2007. And the objective of Climate Healers is, how do you solve climate change? How do you reverse climate change?
So, sir, let me begin from the very beginning. In which year had you completed your graduation from IIT Madras?
1981.
1981.
Yeah.
And after that, you joined US. You joined AT&T, I guess, right?
No, well, see, I did my PhD at Stanford, and then I joined AT&T Bell Labs in
Okay.
1985.
Yeah.
And then I quit Bell Labs and I started my own company in 1991.
Okay.
And then my company got acquired by Level One in 1996.
What was the name of your company that time,
My company's name was
which you started in?
Yeah, it was called Silicon Design Experts. And my
Okay.
company got acquired by Level One in 1996. And then Level One got acquired by Intel in 1999. Basically, we were working on making the internet 10 times faster. And we
Yeah.
were
So I guess you were also working in IPv4, right? IPv4
it
protocol.
was all hardware. So I was basically working on going from 100 megabit per second connections to 1000 megabit per second connections. So 1 gigabit per second connections. And I was doing 100 megabit per second connections were all done with analog signal processing. And we were the first trying to do digital signal processing technology. And so that became commercialized in 2003. And it got on every motherboard at Intel. So the first year we sold like 150 million units. And the internet just took off. Yeah.
Okay. So, sir,
So
I want to know about your story with your meeting with President Al Gore, and what has inspired you to start the Climate Healers, basically.
Well, see, when I first realized that this was a major issue, it was because of Vice President Al Gore, because I saw his presentation on TV and I was shocked by it.
No,
So,
what was your first point? I mean to say, what was the first point when you realized that I have to work for this issue, or for the climate change? Right?
well, the first thing I realized was that this was a systems problem. Okay.
Okay. In
And
2006 only.
2005 December, I was
Okay.
watching his presentation on TV, and I realized it was a systems problem, but it's an environmental system. So it's a system that has all these different parameters. Human activity is one parameter, and nature's reaction to human activity. So it's basically a systems issue, right? And when I realized it was a systems issue, I said, well, that's a systems problem that I need to be working on. And because it impacts our future as a species. So I wrote to Mr. Gore and I said, how can I help you? And he wrote me back a reply saying, come and get trained by me. So I got trained by him in November of 2006.
Okay.
And then during the training, he was only talking about fossil fuels. And I asked a question about land use and animal agriculture. Because I had known that at that time I was told that 1/3 of the land area of the planet was desert, 1/3 was forest, and 1/3 is grazing land. So this was like the
Rough idea.
breakdown,
Yeah.
rough breakdown of the land. And that land had twice as much carbon as the atmosphere. Okay. So mentally, I calculated, well, if it has twice as much carbon as the atmosphere, then most of that carbon should be in the forest. It's obviously not in grazing land and obviously not in deserts, you know.
Correct.
So I asked Al Gore during the training, hey, if we just stop eating animals and we restore the forests on the land we are using for grazing animals, can we not reverse climate change? I
Yeah.
mean, I was just doing back of the envelope calculation because land holds twice as much carbon as the atmosphere. So if we just bring back the forest and the land that we're using for grazing animals, I mean, clearly that forest is going to bring down the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere because that's how photosynthesis works, right? So I was doing my systems analysis, you know,
Yeah.
and so I asked him,
Being a
hey,
system engineer. Yeah.
yeah, I was asking him, if we just restore forests, can we not reverse climate change? And he immediately turned to Roy Neal, his chief of staff, and he said, hey, how did this guy get in here?
Oh,
And he didn't want to answer my question. And he basically tried to blow it off, saying it's not that simple.
okay.
So I said, okay, maybe he's right. And I have to look into this more because I'm
A-
just doing simple
And at
calculations.
and at that time he was the president, I guess, right?
He wasn't the vice president. He was the former vice president.
Former vice president.
Yeah.
Okay.
He had
Okay.
already lost the election to George W. Bush.
Okay. Okay.
So,
So climate reality project was there, I guess, right?
right. Yeah, that was the training. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I was trained in the second batch. At that time, they were calling it the Climate Project. There was no
Okay.
reality in it, but it's called the Climate Project. So
Mm,
anyway, that was my first encounter, and I realized there's something that people didn't want to talk about,
yeah.
right? Uh, so then in 2009, I had done enough study to realize that this was a serious issue. Eating animals was a serious issue. It wasn't being addressed. So I wrote a letter to Al Gore, to Vice President Al Gore, and I got 70 of my colleagues to sign that letter.
Okay.
These were 70 people who had also been trained by Al Gore. And basically saying that if we only talk about fossil fuels and we do not talk about animal agriculture, we are actually misleading the public. So that was the gist of the letter.
And those
And,
70 people were also the part of the training, which,
right,
yeah,
with Al Gore's
Al
training,
Gore's
right?
training. Yeah.
Yeah. So he wrote back a reply. He wrote back a reply, basically saying he's looking into it, but he doesn't think it's as serious as we say it is. But he will have more information for us in the coming weeks or whatever.
Okay.
So it's sort of and it wasn't a dismissive reply, but it wasn't also a committed reply. Well, he wasn't saying he was going to do something about it, but he said he was going to look into it. So we waited. And then meanwhile, in 2009, there was a report from Goodland and Anhan in World Watch Institute.
So, pardon? Report of?
A report by two scientists, two environmentalists called Robert Goodland,
Okay.
and Jeff Anhan.
Okay.
And it was published in the World Watch Institute.
Okay.
And they basically said that animal agriculture was responsible for at least 51% of all greenhouse gas emissions.
Oh my God.
Okay, this was 2009. And when that report came out, I realized that it was controversial because they were coming up with numbers that were way outside what others were saying, right? So I let the others debate them. So the UNFAO scientists who had said this, whose estimate was 18%, they wrote a paper in the Animal Feed Science and Technology Journal claiming that Goodland and Anand were wrong. Okay? And they were pointing out errors, and they thought they were pointing out errors. And then Goodland and Anand addressed every one of those points.
In a meeting or
Not in a meeting, in another paper.
another? Okay. My
Another
God.
paper. They
Yeah.
addressed every one of those points and basically demolished the arguments of the UN FAO scientists, right? And at that point, the editor asked the FAO scientists to continue the debate in the journal. So he was
Okay.
inviting them, continue the debate, write another paper, and we will publish it. And they declined to continue the debate.
My God.
Okay. So at that point, I realized that 51% was correct.
Acha.
Okay. And so I wrote to Al Gore. This time I got the same 70 people to co-sign with me, saying, hey, it's now 51% because of this paper and this debate happened. And therefore, it's at least 51%. And if we don't talk about this, we are literally misleading the public. Okay.
Correct. Correct.
And this time, he didn't reply to me. He actually got his people to call me up and ask me not to go into this anymore, something like that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I basically walked out of Al Gore's Climate Reality Project. Shortly thereafter, I walked out, and I just focused on climate healers full time.
Okay. At that time in 2009, I guess you have started the climate healers.
Climate healers I started in 2007.
2007 only.
Right,
Okay.
7. And so then,
And by 2009, you have left your job also to focus.
Oh yeah, 2006 I left my job.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, so you can see the history, right? And then by 2016, I wrote my second book, Carbon Yoga.
Yeah.
And I basically pointed out that eliminating animal agriculture will not only address climate change, it'll probably reverse climate change. Okay, that was my conclusion. Not only reverse climate change, it will also address biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and all of the other problems that the UN was talking about.
Yeah. So basically, there are three climate crises which UN is talking about. First one is climate change. Second one is biodiversity loss, and third one is the pollution. So
Is the
I guess,
ecosystem collapse. So
yeah,
there were three conventions formed in the 1990s at the UN to
yeah,
address the three major environmental problems. The three major environmental problems are biodiversity loss, ecosystems collapse, and climate change. Climate change was the third problem.
yeah, yeah.
This is the three problems they identified in 1992 at the Rio Summit. And so they formed three conventions. And then they formed these three conventions were meeting once every year in the beginning. So the three conventions were the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Convention on Biological Diversity, and the UN Convention to Combat Desertification, which is the ecosystems collapse. When ecosystems collapse, you get a desert. Okay, so that's the combat desertification. And then in the late 90s, they decided that the Convention on Biological Diversity and the UN Convention to Combat Desertification will only meet once every 2 years, whereas the Climate Change Convention will continue to meet every year. Okay. Now, that was a very curious decision. It's not as if these two problems had been solved. In fact, they were worse.
Yeah.
Right? But they decided to meet once every 2 years, and the climate change decided to meet every year. And looking back, I realized they probably made the decision because they had come up with a convention to measure climate change in such a way that people were made to focus on fossil fuels.
Achha, that was intentional, basically.
That was intentional. I really think because they intentionally decided to
Focus on those areas.
not count agriculture emissions properly. Okay.
Okay.
They even counted land use as a net emissions as opposed to a gross emissions, whereas they counted fossil fuels as a gross emissions. So they were doing things about in how to measure the emissions that was designed to make us look at fossil fuels as the main cause of climate change. And when you think fossil fuels are the main cause of climate change, then you go buy solar panels and electric cars, and then you have green growth in the economy.
Yeah. Correct.
Whereas if you think for animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change, you go vegan and you basically shrink the economy,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
And shrinking the economy would collapse the whole system because the system is dependent on infinite growth.
Correct.
And this is the problem. See, if you ask why is there biodiversity loss, why is there ecosystems collapse, it's because we are trying to grow beyond what the planet can support.
Yes. An
Okay,
ecosystem of finite resources, there cannot be infinite consumption.
infinite growth, right? And so we are trying to grow the economy, and they don't know how to stop this growth-oriented system because they're running a Ponzi scheme. Essentially, the global economy is a Ponzi scheme
Yeah.
because it's based on extracting more and more from the planet and
Exploitation of. Yeah.
using that to return the debt.
Yeah.
And when you return the debt, they create more debt. So it's like a Ponzi scheme, So you have to have more and more coming in for the Ponzi
Yeah.
scheme to be sustained. And so because they're running a Ponzi scheme, they are basically trying to grow, even though it cannot grow anymore. So they were framing climate change as a growth story
Yeah.
by looking at just fossil fuels. And when I come along and I say, hey, wait a minute, animal agriculture is actually the leading cause because
Yeah.
even though you may not measure this, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter whether you measure or not. I'm a systems engineer. I'm trying to solve the problem. Okay.
Correct.
And I'm looking at land use. And today, if I look at the land use, which is much more sophisticated, we have more data on land use.
Yeah.
And it's clearly screaming at me to shut down the animal agriculture industry
Yeah.
first. And also it's screaming at me, do not touch the fossil fuel infrastructure until you shut down the animal agriculture industry.
Oh, the second point is I would like to understand more
Yeah.
after. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll tell you why it's like this.
Yeah.
If you look at how much heating is being caused by greenhouse gases on the planet, CO2 is causing half of the heating, roughly. Okay. So about 2 watts per square meter, 2.06 watts per square meter of heating. So for every square meter of the Earth's surface, the extra CO2 we put into the atmosphere is as if you put a 2-watt bulb in
Okay.
every square meter.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the other greenhouse gases like methane, nitrous oxide, non-methane volatile organic compounds, carbon monoxide, and HFCs, all these put together, they contribute a little bit more than CO2.
Yeah. Correct.
They're just as big. Okay.
Yeah.
So they contribute 2.2 watts per square meter.
Okay.
So that's a total of 4.26 watts per square meter, right, of heating. And then we have cooling gases like sulfur dioxide, low orbiting clouds, and albedo, which is, change in reflectivity,
Yeah. Yeah.
reflectivity of the Earth's surface.
Yeah.
All of this together, they cool the Earth by 1.66 watts per square meter,
Okay. Including aerosols also.
including aerosols. So all put together, they're cooling by about 1.66 watts per square meter. So the overall heating on the planet is 2.6 watts per square meter.
And this data you have taken from where?
In the
Have you?
sixth assessment report of the UN IPCC.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's in chapter 6 of working group 1.
Okay.
So this data is there. So
Yeah.
anyway, this is the total, 2.6 watts per square meter, 2 watts coming from CO2, 2.2 watts coming from other gases, and negative 1.6 watts coming from um, cooling gases.
Yeah.
Now, if you ask me, where do the cooling gases come from? They're mainly coming from burning fossil fuels.
Oh my God.
This is why if you shut down the fossil fuels first, the cooling gases will go away.
Yeah.
And the heating gases, you're not going to reduce the CO2 when you shut down fossil fuels. You're just not going to add more CO2.
Climate change will accelerate if the fossil fuel are no
Exactly. Exactly. It'll accelerate. So it'll
Okay.
go from 2.6 to 4.2 watts if you just shut down all the cooling gases. This is why it is safe. It's actually the worst thing to do
So,
on the
sir,
planet.
cooling gases are coming from the fossil fuels only.
Mainly. Okay.
For example, 1 liter of petrol, if we will burn,
Mm,
so carbon dioxide would be released. I have read one paper that it shows that if we burn 1 liter of petrol, then approximately 2.83 kilograms of carbon dioxide is released.
right.
But I have not seen the other gases which is released due to burning of petrol. So, can you
Well,
explain on that?
see, the cooling gases come from certain fossil fuels mainly. It's not refined petrol. Yeah, refined petrol, they remove all the sulfur, and but then they have something called marine oil left over, and that marine oil has all the sulfur. So when you
Okay.
burn marine oil on ships, you're going to get the sulfur dioxide going into the atmosphere. Or when you burn coal, you have sulfur dioxide going into the atmosphere. So it's not all fossil fuels have sulfur dioxide. Some fossil fuels have sulfur dioxide. And sulfur dioxide is a cooling gas.
It
And it
is not a
also,
greenhouse gas.
hmm,
It is not a greenhouse gas.
it's the opposite of a greenhouse gas.
Okay.
It
Okay.
actually reflects sunlight back.
Okay.
So it cools the earth.
Okay.
And it also, sulfur dioxide also creates low flying clouds,
Okay.
and which are light colored clouds. And then those clouds, the water vapor in those clouds also reflects sunlight back.
Okay. So
Okay.
albedo is increasing. Yeah.
The albedo is increasing.
Yeah.
So this is why it's a cooling gas. Yeah?
Yeah.
And it turns out that 90% of the cooling comes from burning fossil fuels.
Okay.
Okay.
This is
90%.
this is a very this would be a very exciting and a very I mean to say kind of a new thing for the common people, right?
Well,
For me also, it is a new thing.
right. But it's there in the IPCC reports. I'm not telling you anything new. Okay. It's
Okay.
there in the IPCC reports.
Yeah.
So 90% of the cooling comes from burning fossil fuels.
Yeah.
And this is why if you shut down fossil fuels first, you're doing the exact opposite of what you should be doing.
Okay.
Okay. But if you shut down animal agriculture first, okay, what happens is you are going to release roughly 40% of the land area of the planet back to nature. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that land currently is being used as grazing land.
Yeah.
And when you release that land can now host forests.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. The trees can come back. Now, just to accommodate animal agriculture, we have cut half the trees on the planet.
My God.
Yeah. So there used to be
As compared to which year?
10,000 years ago.
10,000. Okay.
Because we've been doing animal agriculture for 10,000 years. We've only been burning fossil fuels for 200 years,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
for 10,000 years, we've been burning forests to graze animals. So, and we have been raising more and more animals, more and more animals. And we have also been, cutting down forests for croplands.
Hmm.
And so if you look at the land use, one of the major sources of land use is animal agriculture. And that animal agriculture is only providing us with 12% of the food we eat in terms of dry weight. Okay. 85% of the food we eat is already coming from plant sources. And to grow that 85% of the food, we are using only about 6 to 7% of the land area of the planet. Okay. So if we just eat only plants, we have to make that 85% into 100%.
Correct. Correct.
So we only need maybe another 3% of the land area of the planet. So we need from 7%, we need to go to 10%, which means we can release 40% of the land area of the planet to nature. Okay. And remember the other two problems, biodiversity loss and ecosystems collapse. Both of those problems will be solved if you give land back to nature.
Correct. It will automatically get solved.
Exactly, right?
We need not to do anything.
Right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
basically, this one solution where the world goes vegan and we bring back the forests on the land that we are using for grazing and restore the 3 trillion trees that we cut. So there used to be 5 to 6 trillion trees on the planet 10,000 years ago. And today there are only 3 trillion trees. So I'm saying if you restore the 3 trillion trees that we cut, then you can bring back the forests that the wild animals need.
It will
Okay?
self-rejuvenate. Yeah.
Right. So we have to then become a species that's not there to extract from the planet. It's a species that's restoring the planet.
Yeah.
So it's a different system.
Correct.
This is why it's a system transformation that we need. It's a system transformation, and that begins with acquiring humility as a species. See, right now we think we are a species that's so strong, so powerful, we can kill anything we want, we can do anything we want, and we are behaving like goondas on the planet,
Correct.
right? And nature is saying, if you behave like this, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, I am a bigger gunda.
Yeah, she's the
Yeah.
biggest gunda around, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And so
Of
she's
course.
saying, I'm going to kill you.
Yeah.
And now people are not listening. Right? And people who know are basically saying, let nature kill them first.
Yeah.
And who's
Not
them?
realizing not realizing that it is equal, that
Yeah.
will
But
kill anyone. Yeah.
but they're thinking that they can engineer it in
Yeah.
such a way that only people in Africa and India and South America will die
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Which is already happening. Okay. A lot of people in Africa and India and South America are dying.
Yeah.
So they're saying, let's just accelerate that, and we'll keep eating meat, and we'll keep pretending that it's only fossil fuels until sufficient number of people have died, and then we'll say, hey, this is the right way to solve the problem, and
Yeah.
then we'll solve the problem. So anyway, I don't know what's going through their minds. Okay, I'm just sitting there. I'm just looking at it as a systems engineer, and I'm saying this is not the right way to solve the problem. And any engineer will tell you this.
So, sir, you mean to say that if we will reduce the animal agriculture, or if suppose we stop the animal agriculture, the land and the forest will get rejuvenated. But what about the other things which are carrying on in the economy? For example, the development, for example, the plastic waste, for example, the
Right. Yeah.
other things.
See,
And in that system, how we will be continue earning the money or something like? Are you
right.
planning to have some new economic system?
Yes, it's a system transformation. We currently are in a colonial system. Okay, let's get something very, very clear. India did not get independence in 1947.
Yeah.
India only got political independence in 1947.
Yeah.
India was still economically dependent on the UK and America and the global north. And India is still culturally subject by the Europeans. Okay.
Yeah.
So because we are going after McDonald's, we are going
Yes.
after
Yes.
KFC. Yeah.
Psychology is still colonial. Yeah.
It's still colonial.
Yeah.
Education system is still colonial. The
Correct.
forest department is still colonial. The government is still colonial. It's all about extraction.
Yeah.
Extraction is a colonial activity. Extraction from the planet is a colonial activity.
Which
Because
was not the inherent nature of India, I guess.
it wasn't. It's not the
Yeah.
original culture of India, right?
Yeah.
Original culture of India was always preserving
Yeah.
and restoring. Okay?
Yeah.
It's about treating nature with respect,
Correct.
not treating nature as some bunch of objects
Yeah.
that can be cut down anytime you want. And this is a very colonial mindset that we still have, right? But it's not just India's fault. It's not. I'm not blaming Indians at all. It's everyone has been colonized. Okay? Everyone is sucked into this system.
Yeah.
And I look at what is causing this to happen. I realized it is the architecture of the currency system. So the currency system fundamentally is a colonial currency system. Because in the currency system, new currency is created in the form of loans. And to return the loan, you have to extract from the planet to return the loans. So it's an extractive economy. An extractive economy is a colonial economy. Because when you're extracting from the planet, somebody is extracting from you.
Yeah, ultimately. Yeah.
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 Because it's everybody's extracting, right? So
Yes.
then someone sitting way up at the top is extracting from everybody.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's basically an extractive economy. Now you need to create a restorative economy. So this is why, I mean, it's a complete system transformation I'm talking about.
So can you give an example of restorative economy?
A
A
restorative
little short.
economy,
Yeah.
it's like an economy in which everyone is focused on restoring the planet. Okay. So the currency is not coming from bankers, because right now the currency is coming from a few bankers, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
who have the power to issue loans,
Yeah.
right? Instead, the currency is coming from nature. So
Okay.
imagine a system in which currency is coming from nature. And we are saying, some scientists are sitting there and estimating how well nature is doing this year. Okay.
Okay.
And based on that, they say nature is able to afford, say, this much. Okay,
This much
as
possible. Acha.
this much as an allowance for humans to use.
Okay.
Okay. So that allowance is given to everybody,
Distributed equally. Yeah.
distributed equally. Okay. So
Yeah.
basically, you now get an allowance from nature. And then from that allowance, there is taxation. Okay. So meaning there's a local government that says, okay, give us, you have to give us 1/3 of your allowance.
Yeah.
Okay, because we need to run roads and do other things. So there's taxation from the allowance. And then from the local government, it goes up to the central government and so on. So we have the same hierarchies that we can create in order to govern ourselves as a species. But fundamentally, no one is going to go hungry because you
Okay.
get an allowance, from
You mean
nature.
to say only economic system needs to change, governing system may remain like this?
Well, governing system will also have to change because the focus is no longer on extraction. The focus is on restoration.
Okay.
Okay. So restoration, meaning once you get an allowance from nature, nature is saying, hey, now give me more than you took.
Acha. Because we
Okay.
are taking a loan from nature. Yeah.
Right. Give
Yeah.
me more than you took.
Yeah.
Okay. Because James Lovelock actually said this very, very clearly. He said, the earth, I mean, if the earth improves as a result of human activity, we will flourish. If it does not improve, we will perish. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Correct.
Right now, the earth is not improving as a result of human activity.
It is already
And
perished. Yeah.
so it is meaning you are going to perish, not the earth. You are going to perish. Humans are going to perish.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If we
Correct.
keep doing this, we are going to perish, right? That's very clear. It's getting worse and worse and worse year by year, right? It's very clear. So what he's saying is if the earth improves, we'll flourish. So we have to organize ourselves as a species to make the earth improve. And how do you do that? Well, you have to once you get an allowance from nature, nature is saying, I'll take care of you. Okay? So you don't have to worry about your basic food, your clothing, and your shelter. Then she's saying, what are you going to do for me? So we have to come together and say, okay, what was here? There used to be a Western Ghat forest here. Why is it gone?
Yeah.
How do we bring it back? What animals were there? How do we bring those animals back? Okay? So restore. When we restore, then the earth improves. The water cycle improves. We have to then clean up the plastic pollution mess. We have to stop putting more and more for plastic pollution mess. We have to stop putting more and more chemical pollution mess. So we have to start cleaning that up. So there are all these aspects of the health of the planet that we have to restore. Okay. So when we restore the health of the planet, we restore our health, we restore the health of the animals also. Okay. So when we do this organization, then you will see the climate improving year by year. Okay. It'll get cooler and cooler year by year, and then you can stabilize it. Because as soon as we admit it as a species that we are changing the climate of the planet, we have a responsibility to stabilize it and to maintain it. You understand? That
Yes.
should be taught in schools. How do you stabilize and maintain the climate of the planet? That should be the primary focus of high school education. Today, the primary focus of high school education is how do you extract from the planet,
Correct. Correct.
right? And that's the old colonial education model, you
Yeah.
know. So we need to abandon that, and we need to start creating our own education system. So it's a different education system. It's a
Which is
different,
focusing on
yeah,
conservation, not
yeah,
on.
it's
Yeah.
right. It's a different education system. Um, it's a different economic system. It's a different political system. It's a different purpose of humanity. So it's a different system. So this is why I'm saying we are going from a climate heating system to a climate healing system.
Correct.
You understand? So when we
Correct.
do that, then we will start cooling the climate of the planet, and then we can create a climate harmonizing system. So once you cool, then you can harmonize and maintain it forever.
Yeah.
So this is the process I see happening. And this transformation needs to happen very, very quickly.
So, sir, from 2009, from 2000, or we can say from 2007, when the climate healers was established,
Right.
until 2024,
Mhm.
what are the achievement of climate healers? This is my first question. What are your personal achievement in this regards? This is my second question. And what impacts have you created on the organization, which are the international organizations like WMO, like Copernicus, like IPCC, like UNFCCC?
Well,
So
see,
these three questions.
yeah.
Yeah.
So since 2007, I've been really working on understanding the system, first of all. How did we get into this mess? Okay. And then understanding what is the system you need to build? Okay. And it may seem utopian, right? The system I'm talking about, where everybody gets fed, no one goes hungry, you know.
Yeah.
You would think, oh my God, this has never happened. This has never happened. But it has to happen. Okay. And this is also the UN goal. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, one of the goals is zero hunger.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no poverty. There is
Correct.
good health and well-being. But then they also have economic growth as a goal. And I'm saying, why do you care that the economy is growing if you have zero hunger, if you have good health and well-being, if you have no poverty? Why do you care that the economy is growing? Why is that goal there? See, it's a deception. You see,
Yeah.
the colonial system has always tried to deceive us into thinking you're free, into thinking you are, you are in a, you are independent,
Yeah.
when in
Yeah.
reality, you have the shackles,
Correct. Correct.
okay? Same shackles that you had before.
Bilkul.
Uh,
And only few people understand this. Yeah.
see, when Great Britain was ruling India between 1857 and 1947, they engineered 25 famines in India. Engineered. It wasn't natural. It was engineered famines, a lot of them. And the purpose was to persuade Indians to go get a job in West Indies or Fiji or someplace else, to migrate as laborers. Okay. And
They were the engineered famines, which
engineered
were.
famines,
Yeah.
yeah. So over
Oh,
60 million Indians died from hunger during those famines. Okay. Over 60 million Indians died in 90 years. So that's about 3/4 of a million Indians dying of hunger every year. Today, as we speak, there are 700 million people hungry.
yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And 8 million people are dying of hunger and hunger related causes every year. Okay. It is 10 times the number of people who died per year during the colonial era in India.
Because
Okay.
that same system has been replicated in today's economy.
It's the same system now worldwide. Okay. But instead of engineering a famine, they have created famines by deceiving you, deceiving all of us into thinking that protein is only found in meat. They teach that in schools throughout the world. They teach it to
Correct.
school children that protein is only found in meat and calcium is only found in milk. So, which means all of us are trying to eat some meat to get protein, trying to drink some milk to get calcium. So, we are trying to eat the food that requires the biggest footprint on the planet, which causes an artificial famine for people at the bottom. This is why 700 million people are going hungry. There's plenty of food on the planet, except the food is being fed to the animals. 90% of the soybeans is used to feed animals.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And therefore, yes.
So
Correct.
poor people are going hungry, animals are getting fed. Why? Because the people at the top are saying, give me my protein. I want my protein. And they've all been lied to. We've all been lied to that protein is only found in meat and calcium is only found in milk. So the same famine, engineered famine, is now being created with these two lies. You understand?
Correct.
So basically, it's the
This is a very important point which you have spoken, sir.
right.
Yeah.
Basically, they've done the same thing, except now they're doing it in a very underhanded way, and people, and so they'll, as long as you don't change the textbooks, you're going to be stuck in
Nothing
the
will.
same model,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So we have to
So,
change
sir,
the textbooks.
let me, since we have little time left, as you spoken, so let me come back to those 3 points. What are the achievements which climate healers have done in this regards, and what are your personal achievement? Like I have known that you have spoken in Oxford also,
Right.
and what are the achievements which you have, I mean, say, persuaded or conversed with the international organization?
Well, see, we have written a paper. I've written a paper called "Animal Agriculture is the Leading Cause of Climate Change,"
Okay.
which is contrary to the normal discourse, right?
Okay.
And so I wrote that paper and I published it in the Journal of Ecological Society in 2021.
Okay.
That's been my biggest achievement in that sense,
Yeah.
because I'm establishing that they're lying to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And it has been accepted in India, right? Journal of Ecological Society of India, I guess. Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in India. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that paper has received a lot of recognition because it's basically in engineering analysis of climate science, and
Okay.
it's very logical, so people cannot argue with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I point out that fossil fuels are co-emitting aerosols, and therefore it's really silly to be turning off the fossil fuel engine right away. You should be turning off the animal agriculture engine right away. I call that the killing machine versus
Yeah.
the burning machine. Okay. So you have to turn off the killing machine first, restore the forest, and then you can dial down the burning machine slowly. I'm not saying you can keep burning fossil fuels forever. You
Yeah.
have to turn it down too, but you can turn it down slowly once you turn off the killing machine. Okay.
So have you conversed this with IPCC and WMO and UNFCCC?
Everybody knows. Look, I've talked about this. Everybody knows. They're pretending I'm not there because they're stuck in their life.
Okay.
Just like
So
a
means
lot of
you
scientists.
have communicated. You have
Yeah,
communicated.
I'll communicate. So just like people are stuck thinking that protein is only found in meat.
Yeah.
Everybody knows now that that's a lie. Why? Because there is lab data that shows that protein is in every plant food. In fact,
Yes.
all plant foods have all 20 amino acids.
Yes.
This is why elephants eat plants and get really big. This is
Correct.
why cows eat grass and get really, really big.
Correct.
Much bigger than us. So,
Yeah.
so, so we can eat plants and get really big too. Okay.
Yes.
And
So people basically don't realize that animals also get all the proteins and minerals from the plants itself.
right, yeah,
So why not to consume directly the plants?
right.
And why?
But it's because we have
Yeah.
been lied to in school. And this is
Yeah.
why I say that lying to children should be considered a crime against humanity.
Correct.
Okay. And those who are lying to children ought to be prosecuted for committing crimes against humanity. So I'm saying that the people who wrote the science textbooks should be up on the dock, getting prosecuted right now
Correct.
because they knowingly lied to children.
Yeah.
And to me that's just
And
unforgivable.
basically, you are also studying the same data which they only have published. So
Yeah.
so basically, they are knowing the things and they are
Right.
lying. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's really sad situation. So I actually wrote an article yesterday on the art of misleading the public.
Yeah.
Okay. And how the public is being misled. This is just straight out of Joseph Goebbels and the Nazi propaganda machine.
Yeah.
It's just really sad that it's going on today.
Yeah. So basically, I had also known you to be a Bhagavad Gita teacher, right? So let me know something about how have you been, I mean to say, magnetically attracted towards the Bhagavad Gita, and when did you become the Bhagavad Gita teacher, and what kind of things you have utilized it towards this climate issue? Yeah,
Well,
from the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah,
Bhagavad Gita is, I use it to help stabilize my work. That's what I was using it for. And I mean, it's been a tremendous asset for me because it helped me carry on doing my work, even though there is so much opposition, so much, disinformation going on around me. And then I was at the Parliament of World Religions, and a Catholic nun asked me if I would teach the Bhagavad Gita to her.
क्या बात है? Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I said, really, you want me to teach? He said, yeah, if you teach it, I'll come. So I decided to host a class on Zoom. And I said, look, I'm just going to tell you what I know, how I understand it. Okay. I'm not claiming to be anything like a guru or anything.
Yeah.
So she said, okay, fine. And so there were 12 students, the first batch. And then I was teaching it, I think one of them, because I was doing one chapter per week.
Okay.
Okay, 1 hour per week, one chapter per week. And then I was teaching it in Mumbai, one of the chapters, I think chapter 10 or 11. And my host in Mumbai said, hey, can you teach it to us also? I said, sure, I'll start another batch and I can teach you. And he got like 200 people to sign up.
My God.
So that's how it grew. Because he said it was, it really helped him a lot.
You personally started to read Bhagavad Gita since your childhood, or
No, since I started working on the environment.
Acha.
Yeah.
And what was your first interaction with the Gita? Can you tell us the story about that? How did you get attracted towards the Gita? Who told you to read it?
Well, I realized that the problem was that it was a lifestyle issue, that the environmental situation was caused by lifestyle problems and mainly from consumerism. Okay. So I realized when it's a behavioral issue, it's more like a spiritual problem. So, so I decided not to consume anymore, so I decided to make changes in my own life. And I became vegan in 2008 and all that, right? And then I started studying not just the Bhagavad Gita, I started studying, Jesuit priests, I studied the Quran, I studied the Bible, I studied a lot of literature. I studied the Buddha's teachings, Mahavira's teachings. So I basically was devouring a lot of the spiritual literature we have. And I realized that they're all roughly saying the same thing,
Oh,
that there is no happiness out there. Happiness is within you.
yeah,
Okay. You can be perfectly happy with next to nothing.
correct.
Whereas someone who has lots and lots of stuff can be completely miserable. In fact, most likely he is completely miserable. Why?
Yeah,
Because he has acquired a lot of stuff, thinking that that's where the happiness is.
but his whole life would be consumed in managing those stuff. Yeah,
Exactly. So he's miserable because he hasn't figured out that happiness isn't giving it away,
correct.
in giving everything you have away. So, so anyway, that was my So then I found a translation by Purushottam Lal
Okay.
of the Bhagavad Gita, and I found that that was really enlightening. The way he explained things, the way he translated things, it was very enlightening. So I've been following that translation, and I teach the Bhagavad Gita using his translation. And basically
So
my
it is
teaching,
has it helped you in the your process of climate conservation or the
oh
climate?
yeah, absolutely. My work at Climate Healers, it has really helped me a lot. In fact, I'm still teaching the Bhagavad Gita once a week,
Yeah,
and it still helps me a lot because I have fresh batch of students every time, and these students have different perspectives, and so everyone brings this beautiful perspective that enhances my life, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
not just their lives. So to me, teaching the Bhagavad Gita has become like because it helps people understand their role in this transformation. That's what the Bhagavad Gita does. You can find your role in this transformation because it's a complete system transformation. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
And I call this the greatest transformation in human history. Okay. And it's really, think of it as the equivalent of discovering that the earth is not the center of the universe, that the sun does not go around the earth goes around the sun.
Yeah.
Discovering that, which actually the Europeans discovered that in the 15th century or 16th century, but it's been known for the Vedic sages for thousands of years, right?
Thousands of years. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been known. So
Yeah.
it's not like humanity discovered. No. It's just the Europeans discovered it. And now it's the Europeans who have to discover that humans are just one species on the planet. They are not the
Yeah.
boss of all the species.
As it is written in Gita. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's something that we have known for thousands of years. Okay.
Thousands of years.
Yeah.
Correct.
But it's the system. The system thinks that humanity is the boss of all the species.
Yeah.
That's a system that we have built.
And therefore it is called anthropogenic climate change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now it is Europeans having to discover that that's not true. In fact, the Gita is right. You're just one species, and you're here to serve the other species.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
Which is the ultimate purpose of happiness also. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So when we take that purpose seriously as a species, then the earth will be fine, and humanity will be fine.
I agree, sir, and it also gives us the motive to live. Basically,
Right.
there,
Yeah.
there is not, there can't be any other motive than to serve the nature which has given us the life.
Exactly. Yeah. So this
So,
is a
sir, I want little bit. I wanted to also know there is a story with your granddaughter also. Your interaction with your granddaughter and how you felt that climate has to be protected, and your basically promise which you have made to your granddaughters, and therewith your concern with the present age generation. So
yeah.
my question is, what was your promise that you made to the granddaughter, and what are the things which you want to suggest to the present teenagers and the present youth?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So the promise I made to my granddaughter is that the world will be largely vegan by the time she turns 16 in 2026. So that's November of 2026.
Okay.
Okay. And and if the world does not go largely vegan by then, the world would have eaten the planet,
Okay.
literally. Okay. So we have no choice but to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah? If we don't do it, we are going to die.
Correct.
So knowing that, I'm confident, I have faith in humanity, that humanity will be largely vegan by then. And so I'm trying to accomplish that by exposing the lies that the IPCC has been telling us and that the UN has been telling us, the lies. I'm exposing the fact that the UN has been deceiving us into thinking that they're all working on the sustainable development goals,
Yeah.
and they're really working on just growing the economy, right? So I'm exposing these things, and hopefully the lies, when you shatter the lies, people will wake up and realize that there is a better way to live.
So, what your call on youth? What you want to say to the youth?
I want to say to the youth, first of all, have faith that you belong on earth. You belong on earth. All of us belong on earth exactly as we are. And that there is a future that is absolutely beautiful and bright that we can work towards.
So much positivity. Still,
Yeah,
you are having so much positivity.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
without the positive vision, there is no future.
Yeah.
Okay. The positive vision is a future in which the forests are back, the animals are back, and the earth has been cleaned up. So right now we
And
have made a,
certainly, and certainly, we want ourselves only to do that, not the
yeah,
nature in a cruel.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because if nature has to do that, then we're gonna have to be dead by then.
Correct.
So I want us to help nature, be a part of nature, be the caretaker species of the planet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And when we take on that role seriously, and we will do that soon, okay, because we have no choice. It's only going to get worse. The climate situation is only going to get worse. And there are already lots of, at least there is at least one extreme event happening every day.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And
36
so,
approximate floods were there in 2024.
right.
Yeah.
So it's like nature is telling you, are you a tube light? We haven't figured it out yet.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's slapping us around, saying, "Wake up, wake up, wake up! I'm a bigger gunda than you."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
and
So tell us something about. We have listened to the COP conferences, right? Recently, it happened at Baku.
mhm.
So tell us something about the week of why have you started it? What was the reason behind it? And why is week of importance and what is full form and
Right, yeah.
everything about week of in a very short
So I
speech.
started VCOP after I attended the COP26 in Glasgow, and I realized that if you don't talk about animal agriculture, if you don't have a vegan conference, the COP they were serving meat and dairy and
Yeah,
fish
yeah,
and
in this
eggs.
COP also. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And it's
Yeah,
disgusting because it's the leading cause. And you're pretending it's not the leading cause by, twisting your accounting, right? So you've got this fake accounting going on in order to pretend it's not the leading cause. And then you're sitting around talking about things that completely are irrelevant. People are flying in on private planes and going and eating deer, venison.
yeah.
Okay. And I say, this is
And beef also. Yeah,
yeah, and beef. And I'm saying this is absolutely going nowhere. Okay,
correct.
these people are completely wasting our time and wasting their time, wasting everybody's time. So 60,000 people come and waste their time and go back. And I said, this is why we have had 29 COPs and things are getting worse in the
Yeah,
climate,
yeah. So
not better.
biodiversity cops are also there. The biodiversity is decreasing.
Right.
These UNFCC cop is there, then climate is also decreasing. So what are the purpose of those cops? Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
So basically, because they are not looking at the problem at all. Their purpose is not to solve climate change. Their purpose is not to solve biodiversity loss. Their purpose is to maintain their power. Okay, that's why
makes sense.
they're hosting all these COPs.
Yeah,
They're trying to tell us, they're trying to pretend to solve the problem. So that we think they're solving the problem. And then we go about our business and let them have their power. Okay? That's their goal. So I realized that it's a complete waste of time for me to go to these COPs. And I started VCOP, which is
in
a
which year?
This was 2021. I started Week Up, but
Okay.
it was already going on. So then we went and retroactively renamed them as Week Up because we were
Okay.
calling it Vegan World 2026 conferences.
Yeah.
But we made that Week Up, Vegan
Vegan
Convergence,
conference of party. Vegan
yeah,
convergence of parties. Okay.
convergence of the peoples,
Acha. Vegan
not party
convergence of the peoples. Okay.
peoples.
Okay.
So the 20th Week Up is happening January 25th and 26th, and it's all on Zoom.
Okay.
You don't have to go anywhere. You just get on Zoom and watch. And we meet for about 10 hours per day on Saturday and Sunday. So 20 hours, and we cover. This time we're going to cover rewilding. How do you rewild the planet? And so we
Okay.
are going to be showcasing all the rewilding projects that are going on.
So is it happening in particular physical space also, like the COP conferences is happening in the stadium, Baku Stadium,
We
like
did
that?
one physical plus online
Okay.
conference that was in November of this year. But
Okay.
before that, we were only doing online. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the physical meeting happened in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basic idea is that unless you are looking at a vegan world and basing it on a vegan world, you're really not going to solve the problem, because
Correct.
that is the leading cause of climate change. It's the leading cause of biodiversity loss. It's the leading cause of ecosystems collapse. Right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
So thank you, sir. Thank you for so much deep insight for this climate change issue, and this will give the people a new insight, a new angle to look at to the climate change issue. And I would definitely, basically, thank you for your work which you are doing, and for diverting the things into the proper positive manner for the
Thank
benefit of the nature.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for the insight.
sure.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.